gotta close my eyes, otherwise it's not gonna detect the bottle. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Clever Ferrets. If you'd like to be a ferret, go ahead and do me a quick favor, hit that red subscribe button, and then you can be clever just like us. Now, today, we are reviewing Castle and Key's bourbon that has just come out. Oh yeah, I gotta close my eyes, otherwise it's not gonna detect. Of course, you can see we've already kind of tasted a little bit of this.
Wee bit.
It's a super interesting bottle. We did obviously, like when we first got it, we had our initial little thoughts.
Yeah.
But just some history on Castle and Key, which is really cool. Before we get into tasting it, is they went in and bought the old Taylor Distillery, which was super cool. Hadn't been touched in, what did it say, like
50 years almost.
Yeah, 5 decades or something like that. Yeah. And they just restored it. They tried their best not to just completely break it down. I think that was one of their big staples. They didn't want to just buy the land and wreck it. They wanted to go in and fix everything up.
Almost like a restoration process.
Yeah, and so they're doing things like trying to get the old stills to work, which I think is super, super cool, to getting the old stills working. What I think is most admirable, before releasing their own bourbon, they actually waited 4 years.
Yeah.
They didn't do what a lot of distilleries kind of do. The new and upcoming distilleries is they'll kind of ask for excess from another distillery and kind of bottle it as their own. And they were like, no, we're going to take our time and make our own product, right?
Yeah, that's really awesome, because it's like you're saying, like a lot of these newer distilleries will basically just get their whiskey from someone that makes it like this huge batch, and they sell it like wholesale almost. Yeah. And then they take it, they get it, and they might blend it with a couple other whiskeys and things like that to sort of get, a little bit of a different product and get their own little spin on it. But in the end, it's not their own juice, it's someone else's. And a lot of times, like these other distilleries that aren't doing that, that's putting out their own stuff, a lot of these whiskeys are like super young.
Yeah, super young.
And so you get a lot of harshness in those young whiskeys that are like aged like 2 years, maybe 3. It's like the bare minimum that you would need to be aged to be called a bourbon. And so, them coming out with their own bourbon and waiting 4 or 5 years to release this, I think that sort of is what got a lot of the backing from the bourbon community for them, just like the anticipation built, because not many distilleries have done this. Yeah. So unique way of going about it. But you found out some interesting facts about kind of what kind of helped them bankroll that kind of situation, though.
Yeah, I was reading up on a couple of reviewing sites, and it looks like PinHook is another pretty admirable whiskey. It's not bad. But it's young. It's like just shy of 2 years, and from what I didn't go in too much detail, because we're really specifically talking about the Castle and Key small batch today is what we're really interested in talking about. They have a rye, and they have a couple of other staple products like the gin that was earlier. But after doing some reading, from what I understand, the PinHook is a distillate of Castle and Key, and so I believe that that's probably how they were helping get some of the funding. They went in 2012, the first guy, I can't remember his name exactly, toured that area. I thought it was super cool. And then 2014, they purchased it, and then 2018 was the first time they actually released a liquid. It wasn't this one. This was 2022 when we got our hands on this one that we're going to review. But what's also super interesting about this one, and really I think all Castle and Keys, they use a variety of corns, most prominently white corn, which I think most bourbons are just using that kind of yellow corn. Maybe they'll experiment with like blue corn or black corn, but this one specifically, I believe, is 73% white corn. We did read up on a couple of notes, but let's just go ahead and taste it for ourselves and then decide. Super interested to know. Also, that sucker is heavy, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
pretty solid. It could be a paperweight.
Yeah, paperweight.
Like, that thing is
it's just
hefty.
cool. It's branded really, really nicely. I also if I can just, as a designer myself, just speak about the niceness of this bottle with this little like clip up here. It's just super cool. Like they did an excellent job. Proud to have it on my bar.
It's definitely a nice looking bottle, and like the little tiny things, the little details that they do, like the bottle, like the stopper here, the cork, just this heavy, like just these little details like that, just sort of makes it feel that much better. You know?
Guys, pro tip, always have some water. We like to use just like a little mixing cup because we're not super fancy. Maybe if you subscribe, you know, we'll actually get money and be super fancy. But always have water. Try not to do your tastings without any water involved, and also obviously just drink responsibly. With all that being said, let's give this a whiff. Oh.
So, I mean, like the first thing on the nose, as we said, like the first time, and even like in all the like reviews we read, was like that sweetness.
Yeah, sweetness, yeah.
Like you get a lot, like a pretty deep sweetness to it. I wouldn't say like, you know, sugary sweetness. It's more like a deep, rich sweetness.
Ooh, rich is a good word. When you taste something and you're like, you know how like fudge is sweet, but it's also like, dang, that's rich.
Like a sweet savoriness.
Savory, yeah.
So, yeah, but it's like that's kind of the first thing that hits in.
Nutty, it's like a nutty sweet as well. Super, I would say super nutty, I think. I'm not getting a ton of oak. I'm not getting a ton of that charred oak vibe, which I think a lot of bourbons do, especially deeper ones like an Elijah Craig or something. But
yeah, I mean, that's what you're going to get when you get like a longer aged bourbon.
That's also true.
You get that oakiness to it because it's, I mean, sat in the barrel for a lot longer and taken on those oaky wood characteristics from the oak itself. But yeah, I mean, still yet. Just a nice, deep, rich nose to it, which, I mean, for a 4-year bourbon is actually really commendable because this is like a deeper, richer flavor than what I was expecting to get from this young of a whiskey.
Yeah, and I do believe there are some of the kind of light fruity notes. I did read a little bit on a couple of different people and what they thought note-wise, and I think there is some floral notes for sure. Castle and Key also likes to mess with wheat, which is cool. We love our wheated bourbons. We are Weller lovers through and through. He's actually wearing a Blanton's shirt, you know, official. You can't see it, but it says "Drink like a Kentuckian." Let's taste this.
So here we go. Dink it.
Okay, I like this taste better than the first time we tasted it.
Agreed.
Contextually, guys, I was not a super massive fan of this. Not because I thought it was bad or that the proof isn't there. The proof is there. All the things that you're thinking kind of is there, but the taste is super weird to me. When I first tasted it, it was super weird.
Yeah, I would say like the first thing is like if you've drank a lot of bourbon, you have in your mind this sort of outline of what a bourbon flavor ought to be. Yeah. And for us, we've drank quite a bit of bourbon. So going into this bottle, we had a certain expectation of what that flavor would be. Yeah. And like that first sip, like we were saying, like super sweet. Like it's a lot sweeter than what we would expect
and it's
from
like
a
a different
bourbon.
kind of sweet. It's not just like vanilla or
exactly
oak. It's like
and it's even different than some of the sweetness you would get from like a rye bourbon or rye whiskey. Yeah. Like this has got like a deeper kind of a richer sweetness, and so like that was what really caught us off guard because it's different, and different's not always bad.
It's not.
But for this, just being called a bourbon, we were expecting like a very particular flavor profile that we did not get. Now, that being said, second round through, knowing what to expect, I'm appreciating it a lot more.
And reading some of the things that I read make a lot more sense, like the variety in these corns.
Yeah.
And the percents that they use, especially with the white corn, I think is making some headway here in the way that I taste this. I think that, and let us know if you've had this. Let us know in the comments, obviously, what your thoughts are of this. I was thinking I had this kind of like ultimate taste in my mind just from us having Taylor so often. We love E.H. Taylor's, and them taking over the Taylor's Distillery.
Yeah,
just painted this. I think maybe too much of an expectation, and then when we cracked this open, again, not bad. But when we tasted it and we were like, what is that? Like, that's different. Maybe my heart was like, oh, where is like the Taylor's taste that I thought was going to happen? And that's not fair of me. I shouldn't have projected my theory on there.
Yeah. And I think like that's the thing is just like anytime you go into like a new bourbon, you kind of have to be a little open-minded. Just to not expect like the same old, which I think like the fact that they're doing some different things here, like I actually like. Mix up a little bit, but staying within like the ballpark. I mean, like, you know, baseball has its unwritten rules. Like they're staying within the unwritten rules of bourbon and not going too crazy with their flavors.
For sure.
But that being said, like, yeah, second time around, appreciating it a lot more. Like I said, that depth of flavor is what is so impressive to me out of a 4-year-old bourbon.
This is not the rye. They have a rye, which we're hoping to taste in about 2 weeks.
They also have a wheated.
This kind of hits like a rye a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong, but this lingering taste hits me like a rye does.
Yeah. And I don't remember, we looked it up, but I don't remember off the top of my head what the other portion of the mash bill was and how it was broken up.
I think it was 73, 10, 17 or something like that.
So that being said, like, even if like that 17% was rye,
I think it is.
Like, even if it is, like, that's still not a lot of rye. And so it's like this sweetness is just special. So I'm guessing like it's probably from the corn variety that they chose to use, like the particular type of white corn, because we did read up on this and they said they're using some heirloom type grains and things of that nature. Oh, yeah. So if they're using an heirloom grain for this, like, that could explain why there is this different flavor profile. Because if you're any sort of a foodie and you've ate heirloom grains, a lot of times you go into it thinking, okay, this is going to taste like what I think I've been eating most of my life, and it is very, very different. If you heard like heirloom corn, like heirloom, like what's another one I've been thinking, like farro, things like that.
Okay.
Very, very different flavor profile from like the corn and whatever the grains you ate before. Yeah. And so going into this, like, that might be why that flavor profile is different. But they don't disclose, like, at least I haven't read what the exact variety of corn is. But all that to be said, I
think there are 4 that I read that they're going through. White. I think the Dent is the regular one, but then there was some other ones that I read that I wasn't, I'm not super knowledgeable on all of the corns, but it is cool that they are doing something different. The tasting notes that we looked up, I believe it's the Bourbon Finder, and I'll leave that review that I read, because I think it was pretty accurate, and I think it was pretty good. I'll link that in the description, the Bourbon Finder. What he said, the main tasting note was cornbread. And I'm telling you, if you have this bottle and you're like us and you tasted it and you were like, it's kind of weird, give it another chance. Or if you're brand new to it, I don't want to project our tasting notes onto you, but when I started to drink this after we dinked it and synced it, and I had cornbread in my mind, it made it hit different. It made it better, knowing that I was looking up, man, what do a bunch of other people think about this? Because obviously we have our own opinions and we want you to formulate your own. Us saying, sweet, kind of nutty, kind of like a praline, nutty praline type taste, like candy or something. Yeah. And, this person said this or this person that, or go on Distiller. Distiller is fine, but sometimes it's like, why does this bourbon have a 6? It's amazing, or whatever. Yeah. So, it was hit different.
Oh, yeah, it does hit different. I mean, it's like, and like, again, all this is all subjective. Like, it's, everybody has their own different opinions. Everybody has their own biases.
Absolutely.
But I mean, when we read that descriptor about the cornbread, though, if you're from the South and you've ever had like a sweet cornbread, like a buttery, like with some butter on the top, like that is in there. Like, and I think that kind of helps to catch like the idea of kind of like that back end
smell,
that back end sweet savory type flavor, which I mean honestly did my Southern heart a lot of good, because I love me some cornbread.
I just couldn't formulate the words. It makes so much sense now.
It does.
And if that's what they were going for, then absolutely 100%, great job. Like, if that's what the small batch wants to be, then that's what it is. And at 100 proof, 50%, not 100%. At 50%, it has that bite to it. I don't feel like I'm drinking something weak, and we don't like. Yeah, we don't like the weak stuff.
Not a weak fan of bourbon.
Like, it has to be for us. It has to be amazing to have that 40% stamp. If you're gonna have that 80 proof stamp, it better be freaking great.
Yeah, because it's hard to pack a punch at 80 proof. I really applaud them coming in and dropping 100 proof. Honest. Like, that adds all the more richness to it. Like, I think they really knew what they were doing when they put this bourbon out there. Yeah. They really thought it through. Like, whoever created that mash bill put it together and then got it set out there at that proof. Like, those little details like that just makes all the difference.
So, final thoughts, final rating. For me, I think that I kind of view this as more of like a special, not gonna drink this all the time kind of bourbon. I think it's like, I want something sweeter, maybe after dinner, kind of not like a dessert wine. It's not that sweet, but maybe something just a little bit more on the lighter, sweeter side. So final rating for me would be not, probably not going to be my first 5 draft points.
Yeah.
But picks, excuse me. But I think that I'm super happy to have it. I will buy it again, and I'm super interested in like tasting their other products.
Yeah.
What do you think is like when you come to the final thoughts, like your rating, like how would you rate this?
Yeah, like I agree. Like this isn't like your bread and butter, like run of the mill kind of bourbon flavor. It's definitely different.
And I'm not going to mix that with everything, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like this isn't something like I'm going to use probably as a daily sipper type drink. Like this is going to be one of those things where it's like I want a little something different. Yeah. Like, I've been drinking my, I've been over here drinking like my Woodfords. I've been drinking my Wild Turkey. Like I've been drinking all these different bourbons that's like my typical go-tos, and I want something a little bit different. This would probably be the type of bottle I would go to because it's different enough that it's going to give me what I'm looking for, but still have like that bourbon flavor profile there. And so, yeah, this is to me is a solid bottle. So I'm excited to kind of see like what other bottles and expressions we can get a hold of when we go up there, or at least maybe when we go to the distillery, have a tasting and be able to have some things we could kind of bring back and sort of follow up from this video and be like, hey, by the way, if you try the rye or if you try the wheated, like these things are going to have like these differences to it, but they're going to be X, Y, and Z.
And even taste the gin. It kind of looked super curious the way that it works. I mean, and they also have Castle and Key on their website has a whole page dedicated to cocktails, which I just found like when we were researching the video.
Like
and it got me interested in what this is going to taste in a cocktail. I'm not saying that I'm going to mix this bourbon with everything like, Coke or ginger ale, Dad. I think what I will do is go check out one of the cocktails and see what it tastes like in there, because I really think it's going to be different. I think this will hit an old-fashioned different. I think this will hit a Boulevard different. I think this will hit a Manhattan actually really nicely, and a lot of Manhattans use rye, and I don't know. I think it'll just really hit.
Also, one other little thing I was like, a little interesting tidbit information. The master distiller at Castle and Key is a woman.
Oh, yes. So I don't know why we forgot to mention that in the daggone beginning of the video.
So, the bourbon industry is like...
It's cool, man.
Yeah, it's through and through just like a man's thing. A lot of times when people think about whiskey, bourbon, it's like, oh, it's a man's man. It's a man's game, man's world. We can throw that track in there.
Sure.
But yeah, it's like female distiller. Like that's really cool. And I think she's got some like whiskey heritage too.
She does.
She's from like
heritage, and I think she worked at a couple of different places. Maybe just pull it up so we're not spitting heresy here. But now the guy that went and saw the place in 2012, I don't remember his name. But I know that she is part of the operation that came in and said, yeah, we're going to do this and do it right and wait 4 years and do this, that, and the other.
Yeah, but her name's Marianne Eves. But yeah, I thought that was just another cool little tidbit to add about about the distillery. Just another little cool thing that they got going on there at their place. But yeah, excited to kind of try the new stuff that they've got coming out here, hopefully in the next week or two, and then come back and let you guys get caught up on kind of what we think.
Thank you all for hanging out and watching this kind of tasting review with us. Don't forget to subscribe to become a Clever Ferret and maybe eventually one day get a jacket. That would be cool, but we can only do that if we have subscribers, or as my wife would like to say, money. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. We are trying to build this community of people that are passionate about bourbon, whiskey, scotch, things like that. We love it. We do it all the time, and so this is a way that we can put our passion first. We're not trying to force sell you anything. We're not trying to tell you what to buy. We just want to put our passion out there and share it with everyone else. So that being said, we hope you have a great day, evening, night, whatever it is, and we will see you in the next video.